Oh, the absolute indignity of it all reduced to a bargaining chip. In a game of chance between a drunken Zalaxian and a human with questionable hygiene habits, my name is Vex Noblax. And until approximately 37 galactic standard hours ago, I was a respected xenobiological researcher from the planet Quintera. Now I'm apparently property of a human traitor named Marcus Quinn. This has to be some kind of joke. I said, my sensory tendrils quivering with indignation as the Zalaxian merchant Grank handed my identification chip to the human. I am a senior researcher with 14 published studies on interspecies molecular compatibility. The human Marcus looked almost as uncomfortable, as I felt his facial features scrunched up in that peculiar way humans have when they are experiencing emotional distress. Look, I didn't ask for a person. I was expecting, cargo or credits. Grank waved his three-fingered hand dismissively, his purple skin glistening. Under the harsh light of the trading outpost bar, debt is debt. Quinn, I lost fair and square. The Quinturan is worth at least 50,000 credits on the right market. You are getting a bargain on the right market. Marcus's voice rose an octave. Are you talking about slavery? That's been illegal in Terran space for centuries. I felt a flicker of hope at the human's apparent moral compass. Perhaps he wasn't the typical brute his species was known for. Grank snorted a disgusting sound that involved all three of his nostrils. Not slavery, indentured servitude, perfectly legal in card game. Begins the Outer Rim. The Quinteran signed a research contract with my company. The ridiculous, I don't want to own anyone's contract. Too bad, Grank said, standing up. Contract is now yours. I most certainly did not sign up for transferable ownership. I protested, my voice modulator clicking rapidly in anger. The agreement was for a 3-cycle research expedition. Read the fine print. Tentacle face. Grank sneered. Section 7, paragraph 12. All contractual obligations may be transferred to third parties at the discretion of Xylax Trading Incorporated. Your contract now belongs to Quinn here. Marcus ran his hands through the strange keratin filaments that sprouted from his head hair. I believe they call it this. Is deals done? Was no refunds, no. That the exchanges enjoy. Your new assistant, with purple blob of a merchant, waddled away, leaving me alone with my new owner. We stared at each other across the grimy table. I took the opportunity to study him more closely. Humans aren't common in the Outer Rim, but I'd studied their physiology extensively. This specimen appeared to be male, approximately 30 to 35 Earth years in age, with darker skin than many of his species, and those peculiar expressive eyes. Humans are known for. His clothing was worn, but clean, unusual for a trader in these parts. So he finally said, I'm Marcus. Yes, I gathered that much during your game of probability manipulation. I replied dryly, I am Dr. Vex Nublack, senior researcher of comparative xenobiology at the Quintoran Science Academy. That's quite a title. Yes, well, I didn't expect it to be reduced to human's pet alien quite so quickly in my career. To my surprise, Marcus laughed, a genuine laugh, not the nervous kind most species exhibit when confronted with a Quintaran. We are not exactly known for our aesthetic appeal to humanoids, what with our blue-green exoskeleton and multiple sensory tendrils. Look, Dr. Noblax, I have no intention of treating you as property. This whole situation is just a misunderstanding. We will go to the nearest galactic administration office and get your contract nullified. I blinked all 4 of my eyes. Simultaneously, a gesture of surprise in my culture. You would do that? Just let me meet Dr. Vex Nublax go. Of course, humans don't keep sentient beings as property, not anymore anyway. He grimaced. We had a bad phase with that a few centuries back. I'd read about that in the historical archives. Humans were fascinating in their capacity for both tremendous cruelty and extraordinary kindness, often within the same historical period. Well, I appreciate your ethical stance, but I'm afraid it's not that simple. I explained. The nearest galactic administration office is on Proxima Station 3 sectors away, and without a valid travel permit, which Grank confiscated when he lost me to you. I can't board any registered transport. Marcus frowned. That's problematic. My ship isn't exactly registered for passenger transport. Let me guess, smuggler. I prefer independent logistics specialist. How charmingly euphemistic. He grinned, showing those flat omnivorous teeth. The human ship, the Lucky Star, was exactly what I expected from a small-time smuggler. Patched together systems, questionable modifications, and just enough legitimate cargo to maintain a facade of honest trading. What I didn't expect was how meticulous clean it was inside. You keep a surprisingly sanitary vessel for a human. I noted as he showed me around the compact craft. Thanks, I think. He raised an eyebrow. Is that a common stereotype about humans, that we are dirty? Oh, yes. Along with being unnecessarily loud, overly emotional, and having a bizarre fascination with consuming toxic substances for recreation. Marcus laughed again. Well, you have got us there. Coffee and alcohol are pretty much the cornerstones of human interstellar trade. He led me to a small cabin that apparently served as both cargo hold and living quarters. You can stay here while we figure things out. Marcus wins scientist. It's not much, but it's private. It will suffice, I said, examining the space. Though I require significantly less rest than humans, only about 2 hours per standard cycle. Really, that must be convenient for research. Yes, for enduring long periods of boredom. Not particularly. Marcus seemed genuinely interested, asking questions about Quintaran physiology and culture as he prepared a meal in the ship's tiny galley. I found myself answering more openly than I normally would with other species. There was something disarmingly direct about him. So what? He said as we sat with our respective nutrient sources. Is some kind of reconstituted protein mine? A simple mineral solution. We need to get you to Proxima Station. But without proper documentation, that's going to be tricky. The hegemony patch. Ships around Proxima are notorious for thorough inspections. The hegemony, I groaned. Of course, it would be their jurisdiction. The galactic hegemony and the Quintaran collective had a complicated relationship at best. While not openly hostile, there were enough disputes and territorial disagreements to make any Quintaran nervous in hegemony space. You have history with them? Marcus asked. The collective and the hegemony have been engaged in a scientific arms race for decades. My research, in particular adaptive biological interfaces, has been of significant interest to both our military and theirs. Marcus' expression changed, becoming more serious. Wait, are you saying you are working on military technology? Not directly, no. My research is purely scientific, but its applications could theoretically extend to military use. And Grank, had your contract? Marcus looked increasingly concerned that sleazy Zylaxian might have been planning to sell your research to the highest bidder. The realization hit me like a gravitational anomaly. By the void, you are right. That would explain why the terms of my contract were so unusual. I was so excited about the rare specimens. Grank promised access to that. I didn't question it thoroughly. Marcus ran his hand through his hair again, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as a sign of stress. This complicates things. If your research has military applications, then you being contract chaos transferred to a human, especially a human with my reputation, could be interpreted as the Terran Alliance trying to acquire Quintaran military secrets. That's absurd. You won your game of chance. Fairly, it was random happenstance. He gave me a look that, even across species barriers, clearly communicated you are being naive. Politics doesn't care about happenstance, Doctor. The appearance is what matters. And right now it appears that a human smuggler with known connections to Terran military contractors just acquired a Quintaran scientist with valuable military research. My sensory tendrils drooped. As the implications became clear, this could trigger a diplomatic incident. At best, Marcus said grimly. At worst, it could be seen as an act of espionage. The next few hours were spent intense planning. Marcus explained that we needed to leave the trading outpost immediately before word spread about my transfer of ownership. He had a contact on Vega, miner who might be able to forge documentation that would get me to a Quintaran embassy. The problem, he explained as he prepared the ship for departure, is that we will need to cross through hegemony space to reach Vega Minor. And if they scan the ship and find a Quintaran scientist without proper transit documentation, they will assume the worst. I finished for him, particularly given current tensions. Exactly, so we need to be careful, really careful, as Marcus 1109 navigated the Lucky Star out of the spaceport. I couldn't help but admire his muted the channel and looked at me. They know you are aboard. How? We have only been gone for 47 minutes. Grank couldn't have reported anything. Yet it would incriminate him in illegal contract trading. Someone else must have seen the card game and put it together. Marcus unmuted the channel. Outpost security. This is Lucky Star. We have already passed inspection and received clearance. What seems to be the problem? Trading post. Escape. New information has come to light. Return immediately. or we will be forced to take action. Marcus muted the calm again. Yeah, that's not happening. Strap and doctor things are about to get interesting. Interesting in what way? I asked. Suddenly nervous, he grinned, and I saw a spark in his eyes that confirmed every stereotype about humans and their love of danger. We are going to run. Before I could protest, Marcus slammed the throttle forward, and the Lucky Star leapt forward with surprising speed. The comm exploded with angry threats, but we were already accelerating beyond their patrol craft's capabilities. Are you insane? I shouted, my exoskeleton rattling against the acceleration couch. They will report this to every authority in the sector. Probably. Marcus agreed cheerfully, executing a series of maneuvers that seemed designed to make my digestive sac revolt. But we will be long gone by then. Gone? Where exactly? I'm thinking the Callisto Nebula. The radiation interferes with tracking systems. The Callisto Nebula is a navigational nightmare. Ships disappear in there all the time. Marcus patted the console affectionately. Lucky Star knows her way around. We have done this dance before. I was about to explain exactly how statistically unlikely our survival would be when the proximity alarm blared. A quick check of the scanner showed a much larger vessel entering the system. A hegemony cruiser. That's not a normal patrol ship, Marcus said, his cocky demeanor slipping for the first time. They don't usually station cruisers near trading outposts, unless they are looking for something specific. I added, a cold feeling spreading through my thoracic cavity. Or someone. But the comm system activated again. But this time, it wasn't the outpost security. Attention, unregistered vessel. This is Captain Draco of the Hegemony Enforcement Cruiser Indomitable. You are harboring a fugitive of interest to Hegemony security. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Marcus switched off the comm and looked at me with wide eyes. Fugitive? What did you do? Nothing. My research is perfectly legal. My tendrils were twisting in confusion and fear, though the hegemony has tried to recruit me several times. When I refused, there were veiled threats. Great, just great. Marcus punched in a series of commands, and the ship's engine note changed to a higher pitch. They must have been tracking you, waiting for an opportunity, and me winning you in that card game gave them the perfect excuse to intervene without creating a direct incident with the Quinturan Collective. The realization was horrifying. They are going to claim you kidnapped me. Bingo, and then they will arrest you right into a hegemony research facility. Marcus' hands flew over the controls. We need to send a message to your government. Let them know what's happening. The nearest Quinturan communication relay is 3 systems away. Then we will have to improvise. The human's face set in determined lines. I'm space. Chase starts. Not letting them take you, doctor. Not when I just went through all the trouble of winning you fair and square. Despite the dire situation, I found myself appreciating his gallows humor. Perhaps humans weren't entirely without redeeming qualities. The ship shuddered as the cruiser launched pursuit craft, and Marcus responded by diving toward the system's asteroid belt, a maneuver so reckless it could only have been conceived by a human. This is your plan? I clutched at my restraints. To get us pulverized by space rocks. Trust me, Marcus said, his focus absolute, as he threaded the needle between 2 massive asteroids. This is what humans are good at, improvising when the odds are impossible. As the pursuing ships fell behind, unable to match his reckless piloting, I realized with a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration that I had no choice but to trust this bizarre human. Somehow, in less than 1 standard day cycle, my life had transformed from respected researcher to fugitive fleeing through an asteroid field with a human smuggler. And strangest of all, I was starting to think that this Marcus Quinn might actually be capable of getting us out of this mess. If that is his typically human of your research is even more valuable than you thought. As we plunged deeper into the asteroid field with hegemony forces in pursuit, I couldn't help but wonder how had a simple research contract led to this. And more importantly, what would happen if a human trader, a Quintaran scientist, and the hegemony military ended up in a 3-way confrontation. I had a sinking feeling we were about to find out, and that the consequences would reach far beyond our 2 species. Hold on tight, Marcus called out as he executed another impossible maneuver. Things are about to get really interesting. And in that moment, watching this human laugh in the face of certain doom, I understood why their species had spread so quickly across the galaxy. Despite their technological disadvantages, they were quite simply too stubborn to accept defeat, even when defeat was the only logical outcome. How hegemony arrives utterly fascinatingly. Human do humans Always fly directly toward the things trying to kill them, I shouted as Marcus piloted the Lucky Star through a gap between asteroids that by my rapid calculations was approximately 2.3 m, wider than our ship only on days ending in Y. He replied with that infuriating grin humans display, when they should by all logic be terrified another blast from the hegemony. Cruiser vaporized an asteroid to our port side, sending fragments pinging against our hull. The proximity alarms were blaring so consistently. They become background noise. We can't outrun them forever, I said, checking the rear scanners, that cruiser has enough firepower to turn this entire asteroid field into cosmic dust. Marcus nodded, his expression shifting to something more serious. I know. But we only need to stay ahead long enough to reach the Barillian trade route. We are almost there, the Barillian route, that's pirate territory, exactly. The hegemony won't follow us there. They have an uneasy truce with the Borlian marauders. Too many valuable trade convoys pass through that sector. I stared at him, my four eyes blinking in asynchronous patterns of stress. You're taking us to pirates, not just any pirates, Marcus corrected, executing another impossible maneuver between two spinning asteroids, the Borillians. They hate the hegemony almost as much as they love profit, and what's to stop them from capturing us and selling me to the highest bidder themselves? Marcus smiled. Retumed, the captain owes me a favor. What kind of favor could possibly offset the value of a Quinturan scientist with military applicable research? I saved her life and her ship during the Proxima blockade, pulled her crew out of a burning freighter, while the hegemony forces were boarding Captain Lyra Voss. Doesn't forget debts before I could express my profound skepticism. The ship shuddered violently, warning lights flashed across the console. They have locked a tractor beam on us, I exclaimed, watching the energy reading spike. Marcus swore, a colorful human expression involving anatomically impossible suggestions, and slammed his hand on a red button I hadn't noticed before, and the ship lurched, and suddenly we were spinning free again. What did you do? Jettisoned a cargo pod with a signal booster should confuse their targeting systems for a few minutes. He banked hard, taking us deeper into the densest part asteroid field run of the asteroid field. We are almost to the jump point. The asteroid field thinned, and ahead I could see open space. Marcus punched coordinates into the navigation system with one hand, while continuing evasive maneuvers with the other. Jump drives charging, he announced. 30 seconds to the ship rocked violently as something struck us from behind. Alarms blared, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the cabin. Direct hit, I reported, reading the damage displays. Engine power at 67%. Jump drive charging sequence interrupted. Marcus swore again. They are not trying to disable us anymore. They are shooting to kill. Why would they risk killing me if my research is so valuable? Because, Marcus said grimly, they have realized they might not be able to capture you. And if they can't have your research, they'd rather destroy it than let it fall into Terran hands. The implications were staggering. But I'm not working with the Terran Alliance. This is all a misunderstanding. Try explaining that to a trigger-happy hegemony captain with destroy orders. Marcus' hands flew over the controls. We need a new plan. The jump drive needs 3 minutes to reset. Another blast rocked the ship. The lights flickered, and several systems went offline momentarily before backup power engaged. We don't have 3 minutes, I pointed. Oh, great risk to himself. It was most illogical. Fine, what's your plan? We are going to play dead. Before I could ask what he meant, Marcus shut down the main engines. The ship's lights dimmed, and we began drifting aimlessly among the asteroids, rotating slowly as if out of control. Now we release a controlled plasma leak, he continued, tapping commands. Makes it look like our reactor's been breached. Won't they just blast us anyway to be sure? Not if they think they might be able to salvage your research from our wreckage. Hegemony protocol is to board disabled vessels if there's valuable intelligence at stake. I watched in fascination as he programmed the ship's systems to emit the precise radiation signature of a critically damaged reactor. And when they boarded us, Marcus pulled out a small case from beneath his seat and opened it to reveal several compact weapons. We convinced them that capturing us isn't worth the trouble through violence against trained hegemony soldiers, not violence. Negotiation. He handed me a small device. This is a data crystal containing falsified research. It suggests your work has hit a dead end, a fatal flaw in the theoretical framework. We offer it to them as a gesture of goodwill. I examined the playing dead crystal. They won't believe it without verification. That's where you come in, doctor. You need to sell it. And convince them that your research was failing, that you were desperate enough to breach contract just to escape. The consequences of your failure, it was an audacious plan. Completely ridiculous, utterly human, and it might just work very well, I agreed. But what about the jump drive? It will continue charging in low-power mode. When the boarding party is distracted, we make our move. We waited in tense silence as the hegemony cruiser approached our disabled vessel. I could see it through the viewports, now a massive angular ship bristling with weapons and scanner. Arrays with the comm system, crackled to life. Disabled vessel. This is Captain Draco of the Hegemony Enforcement Cruiser. Indomitable, prepare to be boarded. Marcus gave me a reassuring nod before responding. This is Marcus Quinn, he said, adding a pained groan for effect. Life support failing, reactor breach imminent. Please hurry. A convincing performance, perhaps. Humans' tendency toward dramatic exaggeration had practical applications. After all, boarding party dispatched, came the reply, do not attempt any heroics, Quinn. We know you have the Quinturan scientist. Minutes later, we heard the metallic clunk of a boarding tube connecting to our airlock. Marcus handed me one of the smaller weapons just for show, he assured me, and positioned himself near the inner door. The airlock cycled, and 4 hegemony soldiers in full combat gear burst into the cabin. Weapons raised behind them stood a tall, thin human woman in an officer's uniform, her cold eyes surveying the scene with clinical detachment. Commander Laravek's Hegemony Intelligence, she announced. Where is the Quinturan? I stepped forward, lowering the weapon Marcus had given me. I am Dr. Vex Noblax. There's been a misunderstanding. Her eyes narrowed. The misunderstanding is yours, Doctor. Your research belongs to the Hegemony now. My research is worthless, I replied, holding up the data. Crystal, see for yourself. The theoretical framework collapsed during the 3rd phase of testing. The adaptive biological interfaces degraded too quickly to be viable. Commander Vex snatched the crystal from my hand and inserted it into a portable reader. Her boarding party face betrayed nothing as she scanned the falsified data, but I could see the slight slump of disappointment in her shoulders. You expect me to believe that the renowned Dr. Noak simply failed? She said skeptically. Science is full of failures, I replied. That's how progress works. 99 failures for every success. While the commander was distracted, Marcus had been slowly moving toward the engine control panel. I needed to keep her attention just a little longer. The Quinturan Collective already knows about my failure, I continued. That's why I accepted Grank's research contract. I was running away from the embarrassment. Commander Vex studied me carefully. And the human, where does he fit into this? An unfortunate coincidence. He won my contract in a game of chance. Nothing more. A very convenient coincidence for the Terran Alliance, wouldn't you say? Her hand moved to her sidearm. Especially given Mr. Quinn's known connections to Terran military contractors. Marcus froze. I hadn't known about those connections. What the commander means, Marcus said. Human with ties to Terran military. The hegemony is not staffed by fools, Mr. Quinn. This was news to me. Breakthrough. My research team made no such announcement. For the first time, Vex looked genuinely surprised. 3 days ago, the Quinturan Science Ministry released a statement claiming a major advancement in your field. It's why we have been tracking you, Marcus. And I exchanged glances. Something wasn't right, Commander, I said carefully. I have been out of contact with my government for over a week. If such an announcement was made, it was done without my knowledge or authorization. A flicker of doubt crossed her face. She turned to one of her soldiers. Verify the Quinturan's statement. All biological scan to detect deception. The soldier stepped forward with a handheld scanner. I submitted to 30-01 the examination, confident in my truthfulness. After a moment, the soldier truth revealed nodded. Physiological indicators suggest honesty. Commander Vex frowned. Then we have a more complex situation than anticipated. She tapped her communicator. Captain, need a direct line to Hegemony Command. There may be a third party involved in. She never finished the sentence. The ship lurched violently as Marcus slammed his hand down on the engine restart sequence. The sudden acceleration threw the Hegemony soldiers off balance, and in the confusion, Marcus activated the emergency airlock protocols. Grab something, He shouted to me as the boarding tube detached. With a grinding screech of metal, Commander Vex lunged for Marcus. But the sudden decompression in the corridor pulled her back. Toward the airlock, she managed to grab a support beam, hanging on with impressive strength, as her soldiers were sucked out into the void between our SH.